It wasn't very long ago on the show that we had a conversation about businesses' unwillingness to hire millennials, people in their 20s. You know, they're just all entitled and they don't want to work hard and they'd rather come in late because they got concerts to go to at night and, you know, that sort of stuff. And then we discovered that there are some people who actually would prefer only to hire young people. And one of those business people is Darrell Keezer, Candybox Marketing. Darrell Keezer, good morning.
Morning, Jerry.
All right. So what do you make of this argument that business people really think pretty dimly of the crop of young employees coming out today?
Well, I think, I think part of it is actually a bit of the fault of businesses not understanding how to actually embrace like a millennial culture. And, businesses who even flat out just say, well, we don't hire millennial because they're this and they're that. They go through the list of accusations and stories of how these guys act. I kind of just look at them strangely and maybe even try to remind them that I myself, I'm a business owner. We've got about 10 employees. We're, quite successful in the industry, and yet I look at them and I say, but I'm a millennial, and I'm running my business. And so, the overall stigma of millennials is, well, they're all bad. And I'm thinking, maybe there's a few of them that, didn't really work out for you, or a bad case scenario where it's just, one person was really shocking in regards to the way that they were acting. But, to write off an entire generation based off of a few experiences, I think it's just dumb. And I think they're missing a lot of opportunities.
How old are you?
I'm actually 28 years old.
All right, so maybe that makes it easier for you to understand a culture. So should the business understand the culture of young people coming in, or do young people coming in have to figure out how to operate within the culture of the business?
Well, I think in any relationship, and I think when you're hiring people, it's always a relationship, right? You really got to go both ways, and so they've got to understand that the motivators and the culture of the millennials. Where some of my guys, they're not early risers, right? So to expect them at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. to be kind of like in the office working away like some other generations are, that's just not going to be happening. But on the other end, I think we need to actually spend the time and train millennials where, if we have a certain expectation and they don't understand it, it's just like onboarding for the last however many years. You have to train them how to act. You have to actually bring them alongside you and say, this is how you do it.
Well, you know what? I myself, Darrell, am not an early riser, but throughout my career, I've tended to have jobs where I had to be an early riser, and there were 3 words that applied. Suck it up.
Yeah. No, I understand, and if you can, if there's not an option, then that's perfectly fine. But sometimes it's realizing, okay, if the person's better in the evening, and let's just say your company can actually adapt to do that, making that adaptation is gonna be able to get some opportunity for some new fresh talent. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about getting somebody to fill the job, but getting the right person to fill the job. And so even though I would almost, want people to be working certain times, and actually, my company does work 9 to 5, right? Like we are a 9 to 5 environment. But before, when we were hiring people at a different job, when we were hiring millennials and programmers and stuff, we found that some of the best talent worked in between, they'd go come in around 10 or 11 a.m., but these guys would go till 9 or 10 at night and just be some of our all-stars.
Yeah, I guess as you were suggesting, it does depend on the business, because some
Absolutely.
businesses can do that. If you are looking for somebody to look after your customers at your morning coffee shop, well, they got to be there.
Exactly.
If it's a case of somebody has a certain amount of workload that they have to do within a 24-hour period, then managers and owners should probably find a mechanism for just determining whether they're getting the work done, because in the end, it's the work done that counts.
Exactly. And I think that, as employers, we need to have better attitudes overall, because, we may have expectations that are a little bit different than millennials, but we also need to realize that we need to train these people. So I was at a conference recently, and they were speaking about millennials as kids, and they're just, it's really hard to kind of get these kids in. I'm thinking, myself, I'm 20 years old. I've got 4 kids, and so it's really difficult when you keep talking about us as a generation as entitled kids, when we're not. And so, I say, for companies that call them kids and think of them as, these irresponsible people, to be honest, they're probably not going to attract the talent that actually wants to work for their organization.
I'm talking to Darrell Keezer. He has his company, Candybox Marketing. He is a young person himself, between 20 and 30, and hires young people, counter to the discussion that we had a couple of weeks ago about a survey that indicated managers and owners of businesses not excited about the new crop of people coming out of university and high school and not wanting to hire them. More in just a moment on In-Depth Radio, NewsTalk 1010. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm talking to Darrell Keezer. He heads up a company called Candybox Marketing, and it's a reaction to the conversation we had some time ago. Bosses don't want to hire people in their 20s. They're just entitled and self-involved, and they don't want to work. And Darrell Keezer himself is under 30, and he hires people under 30. There are a couple of arguments, Darrell, that employers are making, and to see how you react to them. We haven't done young people, maybe of a current generation, a favor by having them go through a situation in life where everybody gets a trophy when you play soccer. Nobody fails at school. Everybody's a special little snowflake. We also need to teach people how to fail, how to lose, that there's consequence in losing. Do you think there's validity to that argument?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, even in hiring young people, we need to teach them those things. And so, part of my, onboarding or training with our staff is, giving them projects that are a little bit beyond their abilities so that they're actually challenged to do stuff. And then afterwards reviewing it and just very, not in a punishment way or, this is just an absolute terrible thing or you're fired, but, review the project and say, hey, what could we have done better, right? Where were the failures? What are you not going to do again? And from the guys who work very closely with me and who have moved up over the years, they've learned quickly to learn from their mistakes. And at the same time, I find that there is a culture of also rewarding people when they're doing a great job. And so words of affirmation and recognizing these guys publicly in front of the team is actually a huge value that they hold. And so I don't think that's a negative thing, Jerry. I think that it's actually really positive to say, hey, this is something that if you pay attention is a good motivator. And so, just an example, when we've got team meetings, we'll go and I'll literally go person by person and just say, hey, this is something that this person has done recently, and let's just recognize it. I'm not trying to just say, there's no failure, but I definitely want to kind of err on the side of saying, hey, let's actually reward the success because that's something that keeps these guys going.
Sure. You're absolutely right. People will appreciate, if they are appreciated at work, more sometimes than they will react only to money. You can keep a person in a company for less money if they know that it's a great place to work and they are valued in their place of work. But you do have to teach people up. If they've gone through that, everybody gets a trophy in a juicy juice culture that I complain about. The other issue that people had, Darrell, employers who were saying they don't hire young people, is that it seems like now 20 is the new 15. Like there's a lot of immaturity, and especially among young males, is what they were saying.
Yeah, and I think, within any hiring process, right, in any age group, there's always ones that you don't want to pick up. Now, maybe statistics are showing that there's a little bit more of those, but it's our job as employers to actually source the people out and find them and give them a chance. And so, what does your interview process look like, right? How are you rating these people? And, we're in digital marketing. We do a lot of stuff with social media. And before they even arrive to the interviews, I personally create their Facebook, their LinkedIn and stuff. And I've been known to actually bring pictures to the interview. If I don't like them on their Facebook page, I'll put them down at the table and I'll say, hey, listen, you've got a digital shadow. You've got to clean this up. P.S. I'm not hiring you, but you've really got to take a look at this and know that companies don't hire based off of just qualifications, but off of character.
What kind of photos are you talking about?
Well, there was actually one gentleman who had, he must have had over 40 drinking pictures, right? And then even there was a picture of his hands that were duct taped to beers. And although, I'm not against alcohol or anything, but, looking at all these photos, it just looked like this guy was a wild party animal. And quite frankly, it just wasn't really working for a company. If I can find it, my customers can find it as well too. and it just doesn't represent very well on the character of the company.
Yeah, I agree. I've often been astounded at how young people understand the digital world and social media in a way that older people don't, and yet older people are smart enough not to put their most embarrassing pictures up online because the internet lives forever, and young people seem to have not cottoned on to that yet.
Yeah, I mean it's a really different age. I mean, where you may have grown up, reading the book 1984. I was born in 1984, and I've never read the book. And privacy is something very different. And so, even as we teach social media courses to small business owners, and that's even part of what we do in saying, hey, here are the components of your online persona that are completely public, and here are the areas that are private, and just distinguishing in between the two. We've even had questions where we've talked to groups of students and stuff, and they'll say, well, what happens if somebody's at a party and they take a picture of you and they upload it to Facebook and make it public, right? Which is something that can happen. And our response is, if you're in a public spot, don't do that. Actually don't do that, because everyone with a cell phone is a publisher these days. And so it's kind of like when you go to a party with 50 people, you go with 50 reporters, actually, and any one of them can actually ruin your possible future or your current relationships and stuff. And so our plain advice is, hey, if it looks terrible and it's in public, just don't do it. Just don't do it.
It's that simple. Darrell Keezer, Candybox Marketing. I think from the discussion we had previously and now adding your perspective into this, the one thing we do know is running a business isn't easy. You make a lot of choices, and a lot of them have to do with employees. Not all of it works out, but good luck to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jerry.
This is In-Depth Radio, News Talk 1010.